What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here. Superman has returned to the Carolina Panthers. And not just to the Carolina Panthers, but you know what that means. Cam Newton has returned home. Cam Newton will soon be starting under center for your Carolina Panthers this 2021 NFL season. I'm going to give you my thoughts on the signing. Cam back home. Superman returns to the Panthers in 2021. Before I give you my thoughts and analysis on Cam Newton, what he'll look like in Carolina this season, make sure that you do Gronk. Spike that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more BLV NFL reactions just like this. Also, Gronk spike that notification bell for the latest upload. As a Patriots fan myself, I was a big backer of Cam Newton while he was my quarterback. And I appreciate you Panthers fans always supporting Cam through those days and through that tough season that was. And Cam Newton was heavily criticized by the Boston media and the national media for his play in New England. So part of that is, of course, the scrutiny that a quarterback in New England can be put under after following the GOAT, right? Tom Brady. So he was not put in a comfortable position. But I will say, what really impressed me about Cam Newton as a fan and seeing him now on my team was Cam Newton was an absolute professional. Cam Newton was a great leader for this team. Every coach, every player respected him. And ultimately, that's why I believe Patriots fans, even though it didn't go as well as they would have hoped, ultimately respect Cam Newton. So Cam is back in the NFL, and I will say, and I think you agree, the NFL is a much better place with Cam Newton in it, and with Cam Newton playing football. You know, whether he's great or not so great, it's a better place because he is a great personality. He brings an energy and fun to football that I think is lacking without him. He is a unique personality in the history of the sport. And not only that, but a complete individual when it comes to, there's only one Cam Newton. In the history of the NFL, from a play style perspective, there has never been another Cam Newton. So what Cam Newton are you getting is essentially why I'm here and why I'm here to tell you. So from what I saw last season and from what I saw earlier in training camp throughout the preseason, I see a Cam Newton that I fully believed. If you watched my offseason content, if you do follow me on the channel, I fully believed he would have ended up as the starter as the Patriots. He would have had success with the Patriots. And I ultimately thought this was going to be a playoff team in New England with Cam Newton as the starter. Now, someone changed that, and his name is Mac Jones. So I think you're wondering, why didn't he end up starting for New England? Like, is it because he's washed? Is it because he sucks? Or what? Why? Why isn't he on the team? Like, why didn't they just keep him as a backup? It's not like he was making a lot of money. So I think the first thing to sort out there is I believe he wasn't playing or wasn't on the team. So there was a couple things that happened. Obviously, the COVID situation happened. So that was something where he almost became a liability without the vaccine to be on the roster. And I do truly believe that was a factor because you don't want a backup quarterback without the vaccine just because he could bring COVID to the rest of the team, to the quarterbacks, to Mac Jones, etc. Secondly, and more importantly than that, that's kind of a side note. That's a secondary thing. More important than that, Cam Newton is not a backup quarterback. That's a reason he wasn't signed by anybody else. That wasn't a reason he wasn't signed by a contender. That's the reason he wasn't signed by the Seahawks. He needed to be a starter. And in a place where I think he trusted, because he wasn't going to go anywhere else. Because if he continues to play, this is basically his last shot. If he wants to continue to be a player in the NFL, a football player, which honestly, I don't think he needs to be at this point. He could easily move on from football and retire if he so choose. But if he wants to continue to be a football player, he needs to go somewhere that he trusts and that he knows is going to put him in the best position to succeed. And I think the opportunity to come back home to Carolina, a place where he was so iconic, right? He's the leading touchdown passer and the leading rushing touchdown man for the Carolina Panthers. And Cam Newton, I think the opportunity to come back home was too much to pass on, especially with the contract that they gave him, right? They're giving about $10 million for the rest of the season, which is actually more than he would have made in an entire season with the New England Patriots, which is a lot of money. So that obviously speaks he's going to start. There's no question about it. He's not going to be the backup. He's the true alpha. He's the true guy. They're riding and dying with Cam Newton for the rest of the year. And for the Carolina Panthers, I think this is a guy that can be an upgrade from what you've had this season. PJ Walker, I don't think is the answer. Although he's a nice story, I don't think he's the answer. And I think the Panthers know that. So he'll start for 1 week. But then after that, Cam will take over. Sam Darnold was good for about 3 weeks, then regressed back to the Sam Darnold we know and love from the New York Jets, and clearly is hurt, but also even if he were healthy, I mean, I don't think he's really the option for you. At least if you want to go to the playoffs, I don't think he's getting it done. But why is Cam an upgrade? I mean, he was sitting on the sidelines, right? He wasn't playing. Again, guys, I believe he was cut because Cam Newton as a personality is too big of a personality. He's larger than life. He's a guy that takes over a locker room. He's a guy that if you had Mac Jones and Cam Newton, and you got the rookie quarterback who you're riding with early in the year, and let's say Mac Jones loses, or Mac Jones falters, or Mac Jones doesn't play that well for New England, how many of those players in the locker room are going to believe that Cam should be playing? How many players are going to be influenced by the persona, the charisma of Cam Newton? And that's also a positive, but it can be a negative if you're a backup quarterback because that's an alpha QB1 trait. That is what you want from your leader. And that is what I think first and foremost the Panthers need. The Panthers need a leader. They need somebody that has experience, especially offensively right now. They don't have an identity right now. They don't have any sort of confidence right now. How do you gain confidence? Get Cam Newton in there. Because even last year, guys, that offense in New England, don't let anybody tell you different. I saw every single snap. They were dreadful. And it wasn't because of Cam Newton. I think he was one of the least influential parts of why they sucked. Their wide receiving core was one of the worst receiving cores in NFL history, in my personal opinion. They literally had no production from the tight end position. Their wide receivers were fourth string receivers, right? They had N'Keal Harry, who's the fourth receiver on New England right now, Damiere Byrd, who I don't think is producing anywhere right now, and basically Jacoby Myers, who really only started playing a few games into the year. He didn't actually even start at the beginning of the year. So Edelman got hurt. The O-line was a bit beat up. The run game was good, and the defense was a little underwhelming too. They lost pieces. They didn't have the veteran leadership. They didn't have the playmakers on that side of the ball that they do today. So the Patriots were, honestly, to do what they did last year, an accomplishment. And honestly, to me, a credit to Cam Newton to win that many games, go 7-8, and win a couple really close games where they could have won at the end, the Seattle game, the Bills game, etc., where they could have actually been a winning team with Cam Newton last year despite the lack of talent. And I felt like he still showed a capacity to run the football very well. And what I saw this training camp from him is a guy that actually looked more refined with his mechanics, more accurate, more composed in the pocket. He was moving better in the pocket. I thought his accuracy underneath and intermediate was pretty solid. He's not quite the athlete that he used to be. He's not quite the passer he used to be, and we always knew that he was an inconsistent passer. But he'll bring an element, of course, of leadership. He'll bring an element of run game. And that, I think, is the most important influential factor to whether this is going to work or not work for the Panthers. Do you set an offense around Cam Newton to allow him to succeed? Because this is the thing, right? This is a different coaching staff. This isn't Ron Rivera. This isn't the coaching staff they had in 2015, 2017. This isn't the same coaching staff. This is a different coaching staff, right? You've got Matt Rule in there. You've got Brady in there. Those guys are going to have to come up with a plan to work around Cam Newton. That's why I believed, and that's why it did sort of work there in New England. At least with what they had, they did their best. And it's because they went all in and said, what works for Cam is what we're going to do. And if the Panthers decide to run the same stuff they were running with Sam Darnold, it's not going to work. If they decide they're going to run the same offense that they did in LSU with Joe Burrow, it's not going to work. They need to run a Cam Newton offense. That means you need to, if you're going to win games, he needs to run the ball 10 times a game. You need to use play action. You guys know, right? He needs to be a vertical passer. You got to give him easy, and you got to work through the run game, right? He's not the Cam he used to be. He's not the super Cam MVP player. He's going to be a complementary piece to a good football team. And the Panthers are a good football team this year. I believe they have pieces in place to make a run towards the wild card. I've spoke about it. I believe their defense is one of the elite units in the league, especially when it comes to pass defense, especially with Stephon Gilmore adding to the secondary. You got a great pass rush. And your offense, Christian McCaffrey's healthy, DJ Moore's a playmaker, Robbie Anderson's a playmaker. You've got playmakers. Now the O-line, you got to take some stress off the O-line by running the ball and by using a power run game and potentially playing through your defense and playing through McCaffrey, who's your best, highest paid player. You got to do that. And that's how you're going to win games. If they don't do that, if they decide to make Cam something he's not, that's where it's going to fail. I believe I have enough faith in this coaching staff where, of course, they're from the college game. They should have a good handle on how to utilize a guy like Cam Newton. And that should not take very long. Now, the question is, how long will it take Cam Newton to get up to speed? I'm not sure. He's a pro. He's been around the game. He's learned multiple systems, including the Patriots system. So I believe he'll pick it up quite quickly. Now, I do have some graphics that I made throughout the offseason through other videos that I spoke about Cam Newton from his last season. And I think when people talk about him, you're going to hear a lot about 8 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. That's the touchdown to interception ratio you're going to hear about. Well, these are his actual stats from last year. So he had 3,249 total yards, 21 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Now, where did this 21 touchdowns come from? He ran for 12 touchdowns. That can't be discounted. And he also caught a touchdown in the last game of the season. But he had 10 interceptions. He had an 82.9 passer rating and a 7-8 record. So when you look at those numbers, those don't appear to be too bad, right? Those are probably better than you thought he played last year. But he, in fact, had some games where he was really good. He had some games where he was average. And he also did have some games where he sucked. I can remember a couple off the top of my head where he stunk it up. He was bad versus the Broncos last year. He was bad versus the 49ers last year. But when you look at Carolina, they've got a lot better supporting cast, right? They've got a better receiving core. They've got a better running back. They've got enough there to make it work. And their defense, I think, is better too. And when you compare him to another quarterback that you had last year, it's pretty similar, Teddy Bridgewater. And I believe if Teddy Bridgewater were on the Panthers this year, I think they probably would be in a spot for a playoff spot. Because I think Teddy is a little bit better than Darnold. You know, Darnold kind of had the upside that he could have been better. He could have been something. But obviously we haven't seen that enough and enough consistency. But you look at those numbers, I mean, I actually, in fact, had a higher PFF grade. You know, I think they won about the same amount of games last year. And I think Teddy's situation was a lot better from an offensive perspective. So keep in mind these things when you critique Cam Newton and when you're thinking about this move. I really feel like this is going to be successful in Carolina. At least I'm rooting for it to be. And I believe whether it's successful or not, I don't think it matters in terms of the decision making here. Because the decision is, let's take a shot to try to bring in a guy that can maybe help us. Sam Darnold's out. He's hurt. PJ Walker's not the guy. Cam can be the guy. He's the only guy on the street that can be the guy. Trade deadline's over. You're not getting anybody. Cam's from Carolina. The crowd loves him. People love him in Carolina. I spoke to a Panthers fan who's super pumped about it. He believes he can still play. I believe he can still play. And I think he's going to bring this team to a potential wild card spot. That would be my prediction here. He's not going to turn the ball over too often. He's going to play within himself. He understands the player he is today. And as long as they put an offense around him, like New England did, it probably will be successful because they have a lot of talent in Carolina. That is my opinion on the Cam Newton signing for the Panthers. I hope you Panthers fans enjoy this, man, because this is pretty cool. This is pretty special. And, I didn't think Cam would ever return, especially to the Carolina Panthers. And it's really cool. It's almost like, it's not probably quite to this degree, but it would almost be like if Tom Brady came back to New England, right? For you guys. So that's a pretty cool thing. That's a pretty special feeling. That would be like the franchise quarterback, the best quarterback in franchise history, returning to your team after leaving your team. That's pretty awesome. So I hope you guys just have fun with it. Whether you win, lose, or draw, I hope you cheer on Cam and have a good time doing it. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think that Cam can save this season? Do you think that he can play well this year for the Panthers? And do you think he could be the missing piece for them at quarterback to turn this season around? It's Mitch. Thanks for watching. Gronk, spike that like button. Peace.